All right, well, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to join us today to learn about the secure, modern, and hassle-free future of moving your Dynamics GP to the cloud. This is the second webinar in our Nights of GP webinar series, so we're excited to have you here and just continue to talk to you about, Ingevity's commitment and your future on Dynamics GP and how you can stay on GP for years to come. Quickly before I jump in, I always like to just share our mission statement, which is to improve the life and success of our customers and partners by providing exceptional business application experiences that simplify, inform, and delight. Hopefully, as we go through this and you've heard, our commitment and, all of the things that we're doing to continue to support GP well past that 2031 date, as well as what we're doing with PowerGP Online to really give a delightful experience in the cloud with your GP, you'll really see that we are living to our mission statement. I know we're not on camera today. We have a couple little technical difficulties, but this is me. My name is Mike McPhillamy. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing at Ingevity, and I'm also joined by Wendy Epperson. And Wendy, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. As Mike said, I'm Wendy Epperson. I'm the Customer Account Manager. I'm actually, I kind of do liaison between sales and customer support, so help with all sides of the coin.
Absolutely. Well, cool. Well, let's just jump in. Unfortunately, since I can't be on camera today, you can't see me in my vest, which I am actually wearing right now. But we're really leaning into this ride or die for GP, being that GP partners who's ride or die for you, the customer. And what does that mean? And being the Knights of GP, it's that we are. Oh, sorry. We are fully committed to Dynamics GPs, to supporting you, ongoing support. We have no intentions of picking up anything else. But this is the reason that we show up at events like Dynamics Con and Summit in October, to really be that ride or die for you, the GP customer. And Wendy, I'm going to pass it on to you because I think it's better that you just explain Ingevity's commitment to Dynamics GP and how we're really supporting our customers.
Sure, absolutely. Ingevity's been around for 25 plus years, and we plan to be around for 25 plus more. The reason that we chose the motto for ride or die is for that reason. We're going to continue to support GP as long as there are people using GP. We're going to support on-premise. We're going to support hosted environments. We're going to support our PowerGP Online cloud. We truly love GP. We use GP to run our business. We've all been using it forever. I've been supporting it for almost 30 years. Our consulting staff, I don't think we have anyone on our consulting team who has less than 15 years of GP experience. And we just intend to ride or die with GP. We love the product and we're going to keep supporting it as long as there are people who need our support.
Well, speaking of that, Wendy, can you just talk to us about Microsoft's roadmap and then as well as what Ingevity's plans are?
Sure, absolutely. So Microsoft published a roadmap, I don't know, a year and a half ago that went out to 2028. They've since expanded that out to 2031. So Microsoft will continue putting out product support products and enhancements and payroll updates until the end of 2029. They'll continue putting out security updates until the end of 2031. Our mindset is that will get bumped again. It's already been bumped from 28 to 31. We think it'll get bumped again, simply because there are like 40,000 customers on GP right now, and there's not enough consultants to move everybody off. So we think that's going to get supported. Plus, we think that the customers are going to come up and say, hey, we like our product. We want to keep our product. Please let us maintain GP. So with that, the next slide shows that beyond 2031, Ingevity will continue to support. Like I just said, we're going to support until there's no more GP users to support. We have plans to look at the option for picking up some of the updates when Microsoft stops doing updates. We're going to see if that's something that falls in our wheelhouse and hopefully offer that. And we're just going to keep working to make the software work as long as it can. I give the example, our customer success director, Melissa Dobkins, gets so frustrated with me, but we have customers that still use FRX. If you remember that product, it got sunset. Oh, I don't even know how long ago FRX got sunset, but 10 years ago, and we still have customers using it just because at Ingevity we know how to make it work, and it wasn't a bad product. So not that we want you to stay on FRX, we like a management reporter as well, but that's the mindset we have. We know how to make it work and we can keep it running. And also with our PowerGP Online product. So if you're going to hear today about our PowerGP Online product, all the things that we have added on top of GP to make GP run better and streamlined and have more automation functionality. And we're just going to keep building those things. We have a huge laundry list of things we want to add, and we're getting the products that we already have, we're enhancing those every day. We've got a new release of our PowerGP banking coming out in the middle of May with new features and functionality. So just keep an eye. If you are one of our PowerGP Online users, you're going to keep seeing new enhancements, new features, and added functionality.
Absolutely. And the biggest thing that you really need to understand is that, and there's a lot of mixed messaging out there, there's confusion from Microsoft. Partners are definitely pushing a narrative around, Dynamics GP end of life. It's really not end of life. It's really end of support. Your GP is going to continue to work well past that 2031 date. There are partners like Ingevity who are committed to Dynamics GP to make sure that you can continue to use it. So, again, that 2031, they're kind of pushing it to instill fear, but really at the end of the day, you can continue to use GP, and Ingevity will be there as a partner to help provide that ongoing support.
Yeah, we actually are talking to a customer that is currently using GP version 10. So that would have been released in 2010, and they are still using that version. It still works. They're on premise. It's a 15-year-old version of the software. It still runs fine. So, end of life, like Mike said, is a misnomer. It's not that the software is going to stop working in 2031. It's going to keep working. Just keep using it as much as you can.
Exactly. Let's talk about, this is still you, Wendy.
Oh, yeah. So in order to help keep your GP up and healthy, we are doing GP health checks. So this is actually more of kind of an interview. We just do a 1-hour interview with you to talk about how you're using GP, any problems you're having. I had a conversation with somebody the other day who didn't know that you could do intercompany transactions. So, there's a lot of functionality available to make your GP do more for you. And in that, there's also some things you can do to streamline. This customer that's been on since 2010, they have extra data that they don't need anymore. Most audit and regulation rules say that you need to keep your data for 7 to 10 years. So if you've got more data than that, we could possibly purge. One of the things I like to look at to see if you have modified 1099 forms, because if you're using a modified form, then that means you're not getting the latest updates every time Microsoft publishes a new 1099 form at the end of the year. You're not getting that functionality. If you're not doing GP upgrades, you're not getting, even again with 1099s, when they changed a few years ago and added the 1099 NEC for employees versus the 1099 miscellaneous. If you're not updating, you're not getting that functionality. So there's just a lot of things we can talk through to make sure that your GP is running as well as it can be and that you're using it for all the things that you need. So please reach out to us, and if you're interested in that, you can scan this QR code and contact us on that.
Yeah, and I'd highly encourage you to do that, just because it is a good idea, just to make sure that your system is running at peak performance, and you understand all of the capabilities that it has, especially as you're going to be hearing a lot of that mixed information of, GP doesn't do this, or I'm missing this, so I need to move to this product, which may or may not be the case, and a lot of times it's not the case. It's just you're not being told accurate information about the true potential that you have, and true capabilities that you have with GP. So schedule it. It's complimentary. We're just really, again, helping make sure that you are running your system running at peak performance, and all of the capabilities that you do have at your fingertips. All right, well, let's jump into why we're actually here to look at PowerGP Online, and why we created PowerGP Online. Really, we created PowerGP Online to be the path to the cloud. It's the cloud that makes Dynamics GP better. So again, you're going to be hearing a lot of mixed messaging from competitors or partners to to move to the cloud, you need to move to this product or that product. That's not the case. Dynamics GP has a great cloud solution in PowerGP Online. And the real benefits is that you don't have to implement anything. You get to keep your GP, which means you're keeping all of your data, all of your ISVs, all of your business processes, functionality, integrations, but you're also getting cool new features that enhance Dynamics GP and really give it that more modern cloud experience that you expect from modern cloud-based ERP. At the end of the day, and this is just kind of this is just something we realized. The big push for cloud, years ago used to be our hardware is aging out. We just don't want to deal with that anymore. The big push now is really around, hey, I don't know if we're as secure as we should be. So PowerGP Online, we've really made a significant investment in making sure that your data is safe and secure in our cloud. We have that cybersecurity, that ransomware protection, which I'll talk more about here in a minute. But again, you're keeping your GP and you're moving into the cloud and getting some additional features, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and Mike, let me chime in for just a second. One thing to keep in mind about our PowerGP Online environment is that it was built for GP. It was built with GP in mind, with the GP system requirements. If you go and look for like a data center, you want to put your software in just a local data center, you have to work with those people to figure out what your SQL server needs to look like, what version of SQL you're going to run, how much RAM you need, how many CPUs you need, what are your users, what are your remote desktop licenses. Our world was built with all of that in mind. When we spec out an environment for you guys, we look at how many companies you have, how many users you have, how many transactions you're pushing through. So we build an environment for you that is GP centric, knowing what you need to run GP with your requirements.
Yeah, that's a great point, Wendy. And it kind of goes back to, again, the mission of providing that exceptional experience. Your GP, PowerGP Online environment is tuned to performance, tuned to your experience. All right, so as we think about PowerGP Online, you can think of it being built on these three pillars. So, I already mentioned that we've added some functionality like PowerGP Banking, PowerGP Import, which I'll show you. Again, these are just things that are exclusive to PowerGP Online. It's flexible in that we do support all ISVs. And ISV stands for Independent Software Vendor. So those are the third-party products like Rockton or E1. GP has a vast ISV community, and typically customers have anywhere from 2 to 10 ISVs. But we also support cloud-to-cloud integrations through API. So think about things like Expensify or integrating with Power BI. You can use our PowerGP Connect API to start making those connections even outside of the ISV products and community that's out there. And then again, most importantly, it's secure. It is built on Azure Active Directory Identity Framework, so you get things like self-service password reset, as well as multi-factor authentication. And again, this is the the big kind of hot button right now is just around security. Obviously, we've got a pretty good sized crowd on here today, so I always like to show this slide, especially when we're talking with people from different roles. So if you're sitting in the IT seat, you obviously really care about that cybersecurity. What are we doing with backups and disaster recovery? What are we doing to make your life easier at the end of the day? Which actually, I'll save this for another slide. The accountants, the controllers, the end users really care about, can I still do my day-to-day? And then what have you done to enhance my day-to-day, make my job a little easier as well? And then business leaders, CFO, CEO, again, you want that peace of mind knowing that you don't have to worry about your systems, but also want better reporting, better analytics, just again, kind of some of the things that you've seen that will make help drive some of the decisions that you make for your business. So you'll see as we go through this, I'll be talking to each one of you kind of separately, but real fast. One of the things that really makes PowerGP Online unique is that we also provide the web client. So if you've ever seen or heard Dynamics GP running in the web browser, that's through something called the web client. We also provide the traditional desktop client that you're used to through remote desktop. that comes standard, but we also include the web client at no additional cost. So what does that mean? That really means that if you've been using GP for a very long time and you just prefer that desktop client, you go to the office, you're going to launch remote desktop, you're going to use GP just like you always have. But maybe you go on vacation and you have your iPad sitting on the beach somewhere and you need to log in quickly to do something. You can very quickly and easily do that through the web client. Again, we don't charge anything additional for this. Setting up the, if you were to go and set up the web client on your own end, it's expensive. You need, additional hardware. Just kind of to have that expertise to be able to support it. Where again, with PowerGP Online, we're just providing that user experience. It really comes down to the user preference. If you have somebody new that joins your team and they just love web client, they can use web client if all of their, daily tasks are supported in it. So I'm going to pop in real fast and just show you what the web client looks like. Just because, again, you get it at no additional cost, and it is pretty powerful.
This is also really good. We get a question about web client for people who want somebody to be able to hop in and just do, purchase orders, or just enter sales orders, or just do inquiries into vendors, et cetera. So it's a really good way for a light user to get in as well.
Exactly. Sorry, I had to stumble in with my multi-factor, which you kind of saw what that experience looks like. We just use the Microsoft Authenticator app. So as we get logged in here, it starts rendering. You'll notice that it's still going to look like Dynamics GP because it is Dynamics GP. Really, at the end of the day, the difference is going to come down to the user interface and just how you interact with with GP through the web client. Typically, existing users who've been using GP for a long time have a harder time adopting the web client. They just prefer that traditional desktop client experience. And this is, what you'll see is really true of any browser-based ERP. So as we look at, on the left-hand side, you have your navigation. One of the unique things in the web client is you have this search button. So I'm just going to open a sales transaction entry window. We'll also use our search button to open a payables transaction entry window. And then let's open Smart List as well. And this just kind of goes to show, how really why existing users who know better, prefer the desktop client experience. So you see these windows stacked on top of each other. You're used to, clicking on the payables transaction window behind, or moving this out of the way. You can't do that in the web client. And again, this is true of any browser-based ERP. So you're just going to use the search button and toggle back and forth between the open windows that you have. We have done some things to enhance the web client experience. So the payables transaction entry window is a good example of this. So if I enter a vendor here, you'll notice that we added vendor activity over here. This is where users might typically have windows open side by side. We're just giving you that in that same pane of glass experience. When we kick over to the desktop client, this payables transaction entry window is going to look the exact same over there. So you're not gaining or losing anything by choosing the web client or the desktop client or vice versa. It really just is kind of a different way, an easier way at times to connect to GP. So Wendy, was there anything else that you wanted to add about?
Leave that window open for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I think web client is again great for light users, but I want to point something out to our accountants in the group, being a bean counter as well. Mike, if you'll click the little distributions button for me down there at the bottom. One of the things that we've modified in GP is that almost every distribution window shows the account description in the same line with the account. I know that seems like a small thing, but for those of us again who are bean counters, if you type in any account in that account number, it's going to populate that description for you where you can see it right there and know that you are coding to the account you expect to code for. So that's just one of the, I would call it a small change, but a very useful change that we have done in PowerGP Online.
Yeah, Absolutely, good point. All right, let me get logged out of here and pop back over. Oops, let me do that. All right, let's get the slide deck back here. All right, so again, the web client, we provide that, absolutely free. There's no additional cost for that, just a different way to connect. But let's talk about the PowerGP PowerSuite. This is also functionality that we added that's really exclusive to PowerGP Online. If you saw PowerGP Banking, for example, and said, I love PowerGP Banking, I really want that, but I'm not ready to go, I'm not ready to move to PowerGP Online yet. My response would be, I'm sorry, fortunately you have to be, unfortunately, but really fortunately, because you get some really cool stuff, you have to be in PowerGP Online to get any of the stuff that I'm getting ready to show you. But again, we don't charge additional for it because we really care about your experience and your longevity in being able to use Dynamic GP and providing some value. So let's take a look at this. We're going to start with PowerGP Protect. And PowerGP Protect is really just our security posture to keep your data safe and secure. So, if you're in IT, really make sure that you're paying attention to understand this. But when we were releasing PowerGP Online, there was an event that happened to another hosting provider in the GP space where their customers, their GP customers were hit by ransomware. It crawled their system. And we kind of took a step back and we really doubled down on our security posture in PowerGP Online. I mean, we were already doing things differently from this other provider anyways, but the reality and kind of the eye-opening experience was, hey, this stuff is out there. And if you've been hit by ransomware, how just quickly it happens. So we took a step back from all of the development that we were doing for the cool products that I'm getting ready to show you, and really just took a second look at security and what we're doing to keep your data safe in PowerGP Online. Unfortunately, we're living in a day and age where there's just a lot. There's just a lot coming from bad actors. Not only continental U.S., you have state-sponsored hacking, you've got phishing, you've got ransomware. Unfortunately, we get a lot of customers that come to us after they've been hit by ransomware, after they thought they were set up securely and weren't set up as securely as they thought they were. And we're doing, we call those lifeboats, where we're getting them spun back up within 24 hours. Definitely not the recommended way of moving into PowerGP Online, I'll say, but we can do it very, very quickly. But the point here is that these bad actors are becoming more aggressive, and the technology that they have access to is becoming more available and just easier to use and easier to fool users. A good example: years ago, you used to get a phishing email from somebody who's sitting somewhere halfway across the world, and you knew this person doesn't speak like my boss. Now these bad actors, they can scam your website through AI. They can create messaging in your tone, in your voice, knowing exactly what you do. So these phishing emails and these attacks are just becoming much more difficult to identify. So all that to scare you to say, what are we doing with PowerGP Online and PowerGP Protect? So on the front end, on the cybersecurity side, we require multi-factor authentication for all admin users. That just means anybody at your partner that has elevated access to support you, they have to have multi-factor authentication. They have to have their cell phone device sitting right next to them to authenticate in. It used to be an option for customers. However, Microsoft has made some changes where now it's just, you get multi-factor authentication. It used to be only admin users that we required it for. Now, if you want to come into PowerGP Online, you're going to get multi-factor authentication as well, which honestly, it's a really good thing. We also work with a cybersecurity firm. Their role is to let us know, the threats and vulnerabilities that are out there that we need to be aware of. We work with a team of white hat hackers. So these are the good guy hackers that just try and hack into our customer environments. Again, make sure that we are aware and identifying anything that could potentially open us or them up to an attack. We monitor the dark web for exposed credentials. So again, this is what we're doing on the front end. to build those walls and perimeters as high as we possibly can to keep those bad actors out. On the backup disaster recovery side, we do daily backups. We offsite those, and they are validated to be ransomware free before they're moved to this backup cloud. And this is where it gets a little different, and kind of to Wendy's point earlier on, where PowerGP Online is really built to performance. It's built for Dynamics GP. There are a lot of other partners out there saying, oh yeah, we can host you, let's just put you out on Azure. We purposely made the choice not to go with Azure. Yes, we are a Microsoft partner, but as you can see, we don't necessarily care what Microsoft thinks or wants. We're going to do what's best for the customer. So we co-locate out of the Iron Mountain Data Center in Denver, Colorado. So we're leveraging them for redundant power, redundant internet. We also have redundancy built in. So if the switch fails, you as a user would never know. But the real reason that we did that, if you were to host on Azure, first of all, you would have to have 2 of every server. So you'd have to have 2 remote desktop servers. You just have to have that duplication in place to even get a financially backed service level agreement. It's called an SLA, basically an uptime guarantee. But Microsoft's SLA is at the server level, which basically means if they can ping your server, you're up. But if your users can't connect to GP, you're down. And then you're in this situation of, well, now what? Who do I call? Who do I talk to? Is it my partner? How do I get a hold of somebody at Microsoft? Good luck with that. Where our financially backed SLA is at the application level, which means if your users can't log all the way into GP, you're down in our world. So again, not only is PowerGP Online tuned to performance and tuned to experience, it's tuned to that uptime guarantee, because again, you're paying us to host your Dynamics GP. You should be able to access your Dynamics GP and not have us come back and say, well, it says your servers are up. So again, this is PowerGP Protect. This is our security story. Wendy, did you want to add anything to this before I move on?
No, I think you covered the pieces that I always view, the white hat hackers, the fact that we actually pay people to try and get in, ahead of time, and we work to mitigate those things, and the fact that we have the offsite backups. I guess I will add, because I'm originally from Oklahoma, lived there most of my life, and I've seen many backup systems for local servers where your backup is an external hard drive or a disk or something like that. Well, in the scheme of Oklahoma, if you get hit by a tornado and your backup and your server are all in the same place, then you're kind of out of luck in restoring any of that data. So that backup is a very important factor in your accounting world.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's talk about some of the fun stuff, some of the stuff that end users will see and hopefully appreciate. Honestly, PowerGP banking is probably my favorite thing to show, just because it saves so much time. All right, so what is PowerGP banking? If you're familiar with QuickBooks, this is essentially something that QuickBooks has. It basically allows you to integrate directly with your banks, download those transactions, and simplifies that bank reconciliation process. This really came about, and the question always was, as customers were moving from QuickBooks into Dynamics GP, a much more expensive mid-market ERP. Even QuickBooks has this. Why doesn't Dynamics GP have this? And it was always just kind of a thorn in the side of our CEO. So that's what spurred us to create PowerGP banking. So we have PowerGP banking for both bank accounts and credit cards. We're going to start with bank accounts and downloading those bank transactions. But again, this really just cuts down on your reconciliation time. I'll show you a quick demo. This, I don't have my demo environment connected to my bank account for obvious reasons, so I'm going to give you a click-through demo. Just know that we just had a new release of PowerGP banking, so a lot of the screens and windows that you're going to see look way better now. And you'll see this. I mean, this is still pretty cool, but just know that we're continuing to enhance and develop for PowerGP Online. All right, so let's start. Here we are in PowerGP Online. Again, it looks like Dynamics GP because it is Dynamics GP. Really, the only thing that makes it PowerGP Online is you have this PowerGP area page. And from here, you can do things like, some of the, again, some of the smaller things that we've added that they don't necessarily get the big fanfare that other things like PowerGP Banking get, be our batch reset utility. You can go in and reset a stuck batch on your own, so you don't have to reach out to your partner. It's not, that's something that every customer deals with. But this is just where you can go and find all of the cool PowerGP functionality that we've added. But going back to PowerGP Banking, we're just going to come up here to Financial Institution Setup. It's going to open this little wizard, and we're going to search for our institution, which in this case is BBVA. There's a two-factor component to this, which I'm not showing, but we'll get our credentials entered here, and it'll take you to this Financial Institution Setup. I'll point out that we already have our American Express mapped. We're going to finish setting up our operating checkbook for BBVA. So we'll choose the institution, choose if it's a checkbook, credit card, give it a nickname, hit save mapping, and that's it. This is something you only have to do one time. It's tokenized. We're not saving or storing any of this data, but now you actually have that live sync with your institution. So next we'll come up and we'll import transactions. Here we're going to select our institution. So in this case, we'll choose BBVA. You can do an import since your last date, or you can set a date range. Click Retrieve Transactions. From there, it'll take you to this window, and these are all of the transactions that we have in that account. So we're just going to mark them all and import transactions, and you can see that we successfully imported 24 transactions. Now let's go do the fun stuff. Let's go do the matching. We'll come back over here to transactions. We'll choose bank transaction matching. From here, we're going to select our checkbook and our statement date. All right, on the left-hand side, you'll notice that we have those 24 transactions that we just imported. And then on the right-hand side, we have 24 transactions in GP. As we look at these and kind of eyeball them, you can see you can do a drag and drop. So if we say, hey, you know what, this matches this transaction over here, you can do a drag and drop. But that's way more difficult when you have auto match, which is going to do exactly that. It's automatically going to match these transactions for you. So, check numbers are easy. They're being matched off of check number. As we scroll down and look at some of the cash transactions, those are going to be matched off of date ranges and amounts. If you see something that was matched incorrectly, you can always pull it out. Something that I'm not showing, but we do also have is multi-match. So if you need to match 3 transactions to 1 or 2 to 3, you can also do that in PowerGP Banking. In this case, we'll just say match transactions. These all look great. And you can see that we have successfully matched 23 out of those 24 transactions. What about that one? So we're just going to show the unmatched and do a filter. And we have the service charge for July. It's really cool. What my still running. So we're just going to select this transaction, import to PowerGP, and you can code this transaction right here as well. One of the things that PowerGP Banking has is kind of that transaction learning. So as you continue to code these reoccurring transactions that you don't already have, it's going to remember that. So it's one of those things, the more you use it, the less you have to use it. All right, now we've successfully matched all of our transactions. We can go and look, reconcile our bank statement, look at those transactions, see that they're all matched. Here's the transaction for the service charge.
Oops, there you
go. So yeah, I mean, hopefully if you're responsible for that, you can just see how quickly and easily and how much time that saves with PowerGP Banking. Wendy, I know you personally did a lot of work in development with PowerGP Banking. Was there anything else that you wanted to add or looking at credit cards?
Well, just the idea that the multi-match is, even though we didn't show it, it is fabulous for, I've done 5 cash receipts in GP, and that's going to match 1 deposit on my bank side. And for the auto match, like you said, it matches check numbers and dates, and then everything else that it matches is based on plus or minus 10 days and a dollar amount. Although it's smart enough that if you have duplicates, it won't auto match the duplicates. It wants you to do that yourself. And as Mike is showing right here, it integrates fully into the Dynamics GP bank reconciliation. So it's taking advantage of the GP tables as well as what we added with PowerGP Online.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, that's fun. Let's take a look at PowerGP Banking for credit cards, which it's basically going to do the same thing, but it's going to allow you to quickly create those AP vouchers in PowerGP Online, cutting down that credit card entry time. So as we look at this, I showed that we already had our American Express map, so we don't need to go through that. We're going to go and import transactions the same way that we did with BBVA. This time we're just going to choose American Express, set our date range, hit retrieve transactions, import the transactions in the exact same way. So we'll mark them all, import transactions. This time we're going to go to import credit card vouchers. All right, and we'll set our dates and choose our vendor ID. And then it's going to take you to this window where you're essentially going to code these transactions. So you can change a description on any of these if you'd like. It's kind of got that that simplicity. If you're familiar with like Rockton SmartFill, you don't need to know your account. So this is a technology expense. So we're going to type in tech, and it'll give you the expense or the accounts that have tech in the name. So it just makes it a lot easier for those users to be able to code these transactions without actually having to know the direct account. And again, this has that transaction learning in. So if you have those recurring transactions, it's going to remember how you coded those. All right, you can see that those are all successfully imported into PowerGP. We'll come up and look at the distributions here. This voucher. So yeah, just a much easier way to code those credit card transactions. And again, Wendy, I'll open it up to you to just offer any of the additional insight that you have from your time in working with the product.
Yeah, so just know that, however many transactions you select in there, if you select one transaction and hit import, you're going to get a batch with one voucher with one distribution. If you select, like Mike did, 7 or 8 transactions, again, you'll get a batch. Each time you import, you get a separate batch with one voucher in it, and then that voucher will have the distributions broken down by whatever you've chosen in the import window. So, and like I said, like Mike said, my favorite is the learning and the smart typing functionality. So I don't have to know my account number and I don't have to type, especially if we have a customer that has like a 30-digit account number. So instead of having to type 30 digits in, they can just do like Mike did and type in dues and subscriptions. So it's just really streamlined for getting those credit card charges in.
Yeah, it just makes it so much easier. All right, cool. Let's take a look at another cool tool, and this is just a small tool called PowerGP Import. If you're familiar with Integration Manager, we created PowerGP Import to really kind of replace Integration Manager, and the reason why is Integration Manager is not supported in the web client. So if you had users who want to live in the web client but also needed to use Integration Manager, they didn't have that ability. They would have to work in the remote desktop and the traditional desktop client. So we just figured there should be a better, easier, more modern import tool available for GP users. So we created PowerGP Import. So we look at this slide here. This is everything that we currently have available for PowerGP Import, which is by and large, the majority of what you'd use it for. So, customers, vendors, GL, AP, AR transactions, fixed assets. Anything with an asterisk supports export for re-import. So if you have items or a price list you wanted to export, update, and re-import using PowerGP Import, you can do that. So again, it doesn't support everything in GP, but if you see something like, hey, what about, I don't know, a good example, but if you see something like, oh, it's not on this list, let us know, because we do take recommendations from customers about what we should develop for next. Well, let's take a look at PowerGP Import. Let me get into my remote desktop and launch GP here. Wendy, feel free to add anything you'd like, because I don't like to type and text or type. Yeah. See, I can't even do it while I'm doing this.
Yeah, I would just add that our import functionality, one of the biggest benefits is that it is built on eConnect, which is a Microsoft native functionality, but the biggest bonus there is that it has business logic. So if there's, sometimes you'll look at an ISV product and they'll say, hey, we integrate with GP, but they're doing direct to SQL writes. If you're writing directly to the SQL table, you're not validating that it's a valid vendor that you're importing into. You're not validating that it's a valid account number. So all the business logic is built in with our imports. So they are very smart imports.
Exactly. Yep. And I'm getting ready to show exactly that too. So here we are logged into PowerGP Online again. Again, you can tell because we have this PowerGP Online area page. I'm going to import customers. So I'm just going to show you a couple of places that you can navigate and use import. So we're going to jump out to a customer card here. Any window that supports import, you're going to have this import button. But let's just use the PowerGP area page, since again, this is where you can go and find all of the cool PowerGP stuff that we've added. And right above that batch reset utility, we have this import. So we're just going to go into a series of drop downs, choose that customer import. As this window opens, you'll notice you have this template link over here. This is the user guide. This is the sample and the template. So you can use this very quickly and easily. Let me show you the list of customers. Oh, go ahead, Wendy.
I was just going to say, can you go back one screen real quick before you pick your list? We
Mhm.
did add functionality about a year and a half ago. You can actually type directly in this screen. So if you don't have your list ready and you know you're going to add 4 or 5 customers, this gives you an Excel-like feel for data entry instead of tabbing through all of the fields in the customer maintenance window.
Yeah, and like fixed assets, that's another good example of how that would be used. All right, so let's take a look at importing these customers. I want to show you real fast the list of customers I'm going to import. Again, it just gives you a feel for the template and kind of what's some of the logic that's going on behind the scenes. So here are the 4 customers I'm going to import. You'll notice that I'm missing a customer ID for this first customer. I'm also going to point out that the salesperson for Slide and Home Cleanup Crew is M. McPhillamy instead of J. Smith. And I point that out because as we go and we import, choose that list of customers. Again, this is using eConnect to validate the data that you're trying to pull in. So I showed you I was missing that customer ID. If I were to import these right now, this customer will not come in. But again, to Wendy's point, you can update right within these fields. So I'm going to give Glove Repair Depot a customer ID, and we're also going to come over to Slide and Home Cleanup Crew. And I'm getting a warning for this customer, basically because this customer already exists, but I know that I want to update the salesperson from M. McPhillamy to J. Smith. So now when I do a revalidate, as you can see, Glove Repair Depot got that green, good to go check mark. I'm still going to get a warning, basically saying, hey, are you sure you want to do this? This customer already exists. I know that I'm updating the salesperson, so I say, yep, let's go ahead and import those customers.
While that's importing, notice at the top you have a couple of check boxes as well. One to allow updates. So if I wanted to go in and update, say, a customer name or an address ID without having all the other fields affect that import, I can do that. Or ignore blank. So if we turned on the ignore blank option, it would have skipped the customer ID where we didn't have a customer ID when the file was initially imported.
All right, let's go look, and you can see how quickly that ran. We'll go and look at our customer navigation list here. And here are those 4 new customers. So again, that's PowerGP import. It's still a manual import tool, but you can just see the power and how quickly you can get data into PowerGP Online using PowerGP import, which is again a free tool that you just get in PowerGP Online. So as you think about your business and you see some of these tools like PowerGP import, you can start thinking about your processes and some of the things that maybe you can just make a little easier by using some of our tools, even if you have something like Integration Manager. Which is a little older, a little more clunky to use.
Well, an integration manager, you pay an annual renewal on. So, I mean, there are times you need integration manager or a smart connect depending on how complex your imports are. But if you're using integration manager for, you know, the imports we have here, customers, vendors, AP transactions, manual payments, AR transactions, cash receipts. I mean, we have the list is just massive of what you can import here.
Exactly. All right, well,
For free.
For free.
For free.
All right, let's kick back over to our slide deck. So, you know, this again, PowerGP import, it's more manual. Let's take a look at PowerGP Connect, and this is how you can start pulling data in through those APIs. So it gives that a little more automated integration. So as we look at this, you know, it's still going to be a developer-facing tool. It's, you know, provides those RESTful JSON APIs. But really, at the end of the day, what this is going to allow you to do is to create those cloud-to-cloud integrations with anything that has an API exposed. So think of things like Power BI or Bill.com or Expensify are good examples of this. Things that are outside of the, you know, the GP ISV community, but oftentimes, you know, it's a smaller cloud app that does something really, really well, but you know, you need a you know, much more expensive integration tool. Oftentimes you can just use our free APIs with PowerGP Connect. So I'm going to show, let me see, let me kick back over to Edge, and let's take a look at PowerGP Connect, kind of what's going on in the back end. It's a separate web page. Enter our credentials, choose our company. It's going to take you to this page where you can set your users, you can set your security. Well, let's go look at the objects, which are basically all of the, you know, APIs that we have available. You can do some filtering. So if I want to go and look at sales, and you can see that you can filter on, you know, view, tables, search procedure. We're just going to look at views. And since we've already been working with customers, let's choose this Get Customer API. So I'm going to hover over that and choose copy. I'll go to Excel and we'll choose Get Data from the Web. Paste that URL in. I'm already connected to Excel, so I don't have to enter any of my PowerGP Connect credentials. So just opening on the other side here, open Power Query. We're just going to convert this to a table. All right, so now we actually have Excel on our local machine that's rendering a list of our customers. So we're no longer in the remote desktop. So what you can do is create Excel refreshable reports, you know, for, you know, somebody like an executive who may just need to pop in and open a report, but doesn't want to log into the remote desktop to be able to do that. You can use PowerGP Connect to create these reports for them. Real fast, as we look at this, let me do a little filter here, just so you can see that there are no smoke and mirrors. Here are those 4 customers that we just imported. If I kick back over into GP and I say, hey, you know what, AAA Game Day Dogs, that really should be in McPhillamy. Let's save that. And we kick back over here. And we come and look at salesperson, watch the magic happen as I do a refresh. So again, just see the power of being able to create these, you know, refreshable reports using PowerGP Connect that is kind of creating that integration. Wendy, anything else you want to mention before I hop in and we talk about Power BI?
Yes, absolutely. So in PowerGP Connect, Mike, if you'll toggle back over there, as Mike was showing it, you'll notice that you have the option of tables, views, and stored procedures for objects. But clear all your filters on that, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
At the very top of the list, once the filters are all cleared, and change it back to tables and views, please. And actually away from sales, sorry, change the series back to, yep, all. You'll notice at the top of the list, we have a KJ vendor items. That is a custom view that one of our consultants has made in searching for something. More than likely, it is based on the standard vendor view, but it either has more or less fields. So either we've added maybe joined some tables together for vendors and items, or something along that line. But if you can create the view or the stored proc, it can be rendered into PowerGP Connect and used by the API just as easily as the one we just showed you. Adding the object is super easy, and then as soon as you add it, you get the URL that you can copy and paste and use in the other programs.
Exactly. Yep. Got to show that. All right. Well, let me kick back over to the slide deck here, and I want to show you another powerful use case for PowerGP Connect. And talk about Power BI. So if you've ever been on Microsoft's website and you've seen all the really cool dashboarding and KPIs, that's all a product called Power BI. Oftentimes, kind of like Excel, you're like, oh, that looks really cool, I want that. And then you go and purchase or subscribe to Power BI. And then you get this, all right, now what? How do I start from this blank template to what they just showed me? So we've created these content packs for Power BI exclusively for PowerGP Online. You can see, that we have 6 available. We don't charge anything for these. Again, these are templates. So if you said, hey, you know what, I want to start with this, but I want to pull in some other data sources, or I want to create my own, we can certainly help with that as well. But these are just a great starting point for Power BI. So you can start consuming your data in that really visual, graphical way. So here's an example of my favorite financial content pack. So again, this is already pre-built. Once you move into PowerGP Online, we can help connect you up to these content packs. But as we scroll through this, you can see we have balance sheet analysis. You can see the trending year over year. It does have that kind of AI experience. So if we right-click, analyze, explain the increase, it's going to tell us what's happening with our assets. In June 2017, for example, net profit analysis, again, you can see the trending, just makes it much easier to see and make decisions on running your business. You can see account balances, and you can get pretty granular in how you slice and dice your data. So if I want to see AP for March 2016, I can do that. For the accountants in the room that really love key accounts, here you go. You have the net cash flow calendar, so you can see where money's coming in and going out throughout the month, as well as cash analysis. So again, just a real quick, easy way to connect up and start using these tools. And then, again, Wendy, I'll open it up to you just to make sure you didn't want to add any additional context to any of these.
Just the fact that they're there, they're free, and they were built again by people with accounting knowledge who know what you want to see in your reporting.
Exactly. All right, well, let's see. Let me get back to the slide deck here. Let's talk about, we showed you some really cool stuff. How easy is it to move into PowerGP Online? Wendy, I'm going to let you talk to this.
Sure. Yeah. So if you've been using GP for any length of time, moving to PowerGP Online is the equivalent of a server move. You're just you back up your databases, upload your databases, and start using it. I mean, that's the very simplified version of that. Of course, behind the scenes, the reason we have a setup fee is because behind the scenes, we build all your machines for you. We make sure that they are spec'd out to the requirements that you need for your system. We help you set up all of the users, and then we do what we call a UAT, a user acceptance testing process. So you actually get to have your data in our cloud and get in and move around in it. You get to make sure all the users can connect properly, the web client works if you want it to work, that your processes are going to function the way they function. And then when you finish with the user acceptance testing, then we refresh your data. So you're still using your on-premise GP while you're testing and learning how to use PowerGP Online. So it's a really nice dual process, but our process includes that user acceptance testing. And again, with all of your ISVs, we get those up and loaded, make sure they're running integrations. We bring those up. We bring up your reporting, your, my management reporter, all your financial statements, all of that stuff is just loaded in for you and ready to go as soon as you're ready to go.
And when you think about this and compare it to implementing a new system, a new ERP to move to the cloud, this is much, much easier. It's much, much cheaper. Obviously, no matter what you choose, whether, if you were looking at Business Central because Microsoft is telling you to go that direction, it's still a different product. It's still an implementation. It's still, $50,000 to $100,000 to implement, plus leadership time, plus the training new users. Because this is GP, and you're getting your users in and doing that testing, it's all going to be the same with some added functionality and features that they're going to have access to, and we'll get some training on. But obviously, you compare that to implementing something new. This is just much, much easier and allows you to continue business as usual without disruption to your business. Q&A, I think, I'm not sure if
Yeah,
Wendy's available to stay on after, but
I've been answering a lot of the questions, so let me kind of summarize, and Mike, you'll have to chime in on a few of these. Will the recording be sent out, and will the slide deck be available?
yes, I can make those available. We will be putting this out and sending the links, and I can send the slide deck as well.
Okay. We got asked about several ISVs. Yes, MEM works in our world, Cavallo, SalesPad, RecLogic. If there is an ISV that we are unfamiliar with, we have a person on our team who will vet that ISV to make sure, if and how it will work. Plus, if it's something that doesn't need to be installed on our servers and it just needs to be connected with, then there are several ways we can make that connection help it happen as well, either using our PowerGP Connect tool, or we can set up VPN access, et cetera. So there's multiple ways we can do that. We got asked if PowerGP Online is owned by Microsoft. The answer is no. PowerGP is, the simplest way to look at it is it's like any other ISV. We have our own intellectual property added on top of GP. However, the piece that makes PowerGP a little different than an ISV is the fact that it is in our cloud hosting. So you cannot get our PowerGP Online products for on-premise. Right now, you have to be in our cloud for that. And then let's see, how will this work beyond GP sunset, say after 5 years? As we said at the beginning of the session, we're just going to keep supporting it. Your GP will not stop working. You own it. It's going to keep working, and we're just going to keep making sure that there's the cybersecurity, the PowerGP protect, all of the things to secure your GP. And then if and when it comes to the point where there may be new features that should be added to GP, we'll decide whether we can do that or how we're going to do that. The plan is for us to, yes, pick up some of those functionalities that Microsoft stops providing. And then we had one on PowerGP Banking about, do you work with overseas banks? That would be a process of the interim tool we use to pull that data, and we just kind of have to check the banks. I don't think we have an overseas restriction on the banks particularly, but it's a matter of what's available in the conduit that we use to get that banking information in, so we'd have to check. And I think that is all of the questions that we already have. If I missed a question, please ping me again in the question zone. But I think that gets all of what's already been asked.
Perfect. I'll give it another minute here just in case there are any straggling questions that come in. Otherwise, again, if you have a question or after the fact, like, oh, I should have asked this, again, feel free to reach out to us at sales@ingevity.com. We're happy to have a conversation, answer any additional questions you may have, or provide a quote. Just let us know what we can do. All right, Wendy, I'm not seeing anything else, so I think we can wrap it up. And again, we just really appreciate you taking the time to join us today, have a conversation, learn a little more about how you can stay on Dynamics GP through PowerGP Online, how Ingevity can continue to support you for as long as you want to use GP. So again, if you're hearing anything or you're concerned about any of the messaging that you've been hearing from partners or really anybody else, it's coming from all directions. Let us be that that kind of beacon for you that you can reach out to and ask the truthful questions, and we'll be honest with you. But really, at the end of the day, we're trying to set the record straight to make sure that you understand that Microsoft is going in this direction. But if you're happy on GP, you can stay on GP, and we will be there to support you for as long as you want to ride with us. All right. Well, thank you again for your time, and have a great rest of your day.